The Social Employment Fund's Zero Learner Dropout project has been undertaken in Molteno and Sterkstroom. Molteno and Sterkstroom towns are two rural service towns based in the Chris Hani district in the Eastern Cape province, one of the poorest provinces in South Africa. These rural service centres are some of the areas with very high unemployment rates and high poverty levels. They have almost no industries, and most of the parents of these children work on farms or are dependent on SASSA grants. During COVID, these areas were struck by the absolute calamity of having almost no income and a massive decrease in the services available to them. Arising from that, we found that more than 30% of the children at school dropped out of school in the last 3 years. These children would then lose any chance of escaping the vicious cycle of poverty. These communities requested Small Projects Foundation to come and work with them, and we approached the schools, and the schools requested us to come and work and help them solve some of these problems relating especially to learner dropouts. We were assisted by the Dorpe wind farm in the initial stages, and we then developed a strategy with the schools which looked at identifying the learners who dropped out in the last 3 years, sending youth ambassadors to actually go and do home visits and encourage both the parents and the children for the children to come back to school. Through this process, we identified that there were many problems and issues and barriers to learners getting back to school. We identified 311 children from 7 schools that had in fact dropped out. Of that 311, 111 of these children were not coming back to school because their parents and or caregivers did not have money to buy a uniform. And for these children, it was almost impossible socially for them to survive at school without having a uniform. A further 88 of these 311 children were not going to school because there was no food at home to even support the family, and they were engaged in strategies to try and keep a little bit of food available in the families. A further group of children were also lacking ID documents and birth certificates to apply for grants. That was of 93 children need that support. 25 of the children had actually left school because of bullying practices. 15 pupils had left because they'd become pregnant, and those were the key reasons why children had dropped out of school. So we were fortunate to get funding from the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative under the Social Employment Fund to hire young people in the community, train them and support them to work with the schools to actually go and find dropouts and bring them back to school. These youth ambassadors have done an amazing job, and today we are busy with a process where we're going to be dealing with providing uniform vouchers to 111 children and food parcels to 88 children, which means that nearly 200 children, in fact just over 200 children, have come back to school just by providing these basic necessities. And we want to celebrate this event, which with a very small contribution to each child can guarantee them a future and a hope of escaping from poverty and having a career and a life beyond.